What would make a man speak again after 15 years of silence? Not a scream, not a whisper, but a song. A song that had once filled churches with light and vanished in a single dark moment. This is the story of Elias and the night of strangers. Whisper shattered the walls he built around his heart. A whisper not from this world, but from the God who still speaks into silence. Stay with us. This may be the story your heart has waited to hear. Elias was once called the voice of fire. In a small, lively church on the east side of the city, he led worship with such passion, it brought people to their knees. He didn't just sing songs. He poured his soul through every note, lifting weary hearts closer to heaven. He was a husband, a father, a faithful man. Until the day everything collapsed. It was an ordinary Sunday. He had promised to take his 7-year-old daughter, Anna, out for ice cream after service. She had worn her favorite blue dress. She twirled in the church aisle while waiting. But Elias got caught up after service talking to a visitor. He told Anna to wait outside with her mom. The screech of tires, a drunk driver, a scream, a silence. By the time Elias ran outside, the world had changed forever. Anna was gone. In an instant, joy became ashes. He tried to keep singing, but every word stuck in his throat. Every chord felt like betrayal. One Sunday later, mid-song, he stopped. He left the microphone, walked out of the sanctuary, and never returned. At first, friends called, visited, prayed. But weeks turned into months. He spoke less then. Not at all. Doctors called it selective mutism triggered by trauma. But Elias believed it was more than that. He believed his voice had died with Anna. His wife, Maria, stayed by his side. She became his translator, his comfort, his shield. But grief grew like a shadow in their home. 3 years after Anna's death, Maria died in her sleep. Doctors said it was her heart. Elias believed it broke. Now he was truly alone. He sold everything and bought a modest apartment. He got a job as a taxi driver. He drove 12-hour shifts in silence. A small laminated card hung from his dashboard. I am mute. Thank you for understanding. Passengers respected it. Most assumed he had been born mute. No one knew that. Inside him lived a song that once set souls ablaze. 15 years passed. He drove the same streets where he once walked Anna to school. He avoided churches. He avoided music. He avoided mirrors. Until one rainy night, the storm was relentless. Streets glistened with reflections of sorrow. It was his last ride for the night. He pulled over as an elderly woman stepped into the back seat. She was soaked, holding only a small worn Bible. Her voice was soft as she gave an address. For 10 minutes, they drove in silence. Elias felt strangely unsettled. There was something familiar about her presence, as if the car had become sacred. Ground. Then, as they neared the destination, she leaned forward and spoke just 5 words. God still loves you, Elias. His hands froze on the wheel. His heart thudded. He hadn't told her his name. The card on the dashboard didn't have it. His name hadn't been spoken aloud in weeks. He pulled over. Tears began to fall before he understood why. 15 years of silence cracked. His chest heaved. His lips trembled. Then it happened. From the depths of his soul, a sound. A melody, faint, broken, raw, but undeniably real. He began to sing. At first, just one line from an old worship song, then another. The voice was fragile, but it was his. He wept as the words poured out. Rain tapped against the windows like an audience of angels. When he finished, the woman said nothing, only smiled. Then gently said, I didn't come for a ride tonight. I came for you. She opened the door and stepped into the rain. Elias never saw her again. The next morning, he drove to the church he had once served. He parked outside for nearly an hour, then walked in. People barely recognized him, older, thinner. But when the worship leader asked if anyone wanted to sing, He stood. The room stilled. He stepped forward. He closed his eyes and sang. His voice, though weathered, filled the room like it once did. Some cried. Some whispered. Some just sat in awe. Elias sang for 20 minutes. He sang like a man reborn, like someone who had been lost in the wilderness and heard the shepherd call his name. He didn't return to a worship career. He didn't need to. He began visiting shelters, hospitals, prisons, anywhere hearts were broken. He didn't speak much. But when he sang, heaven touched earth. Someone once whispered 5 words into his silence. And a man who hadn't spoken in 15 years found his voice again. Maybe someone you know is living in silence. Maybe that someone is you. Whisper the words, say them out loud. Even if your voice trembles, God loves you, still, always, deeply. Truly. And if this story moved your heart, let it move your hands too. Click like to let others find it. Comment with the words, God still speaks, if you've ever felt him meet you in the silence. And share this story with someone who needs to remember. He's still here, he still loves, and he still restores voices once lost. Subscribe to Faith Light Stories for more true stories that light your soul.